Everything begins in a place most people underestimate: the mind. Not the surface level thinking you do when you're reacting to life, but the deeper space where vision is born. Because before anything becomes real in your hands, it has to become real in your imagination. And if you don't take control of that space, life will fill it for you with limitations, with doubt, with borrowed expectations that were never meant for you. You see, most people don't lack ability. They lack clarity. They wake up every day moving, working, pushing, but without direction. And when there's no direction, even effort becomes wasted energy. It's like running full speed in the wrong direction. You're exhausted, but you're not getting any closer to where you actually want to be. That's what happens when you don't have a vision. You drift, you react, you survive instead of design. But the moment you decide to get clear, to really sit down with yourself and ask the hard questions, everything begins to shift. Not overnight, not magically, but fundamentally. Because now you're not just living, you're aiming. What does your life actually look like when you strip away fear? Not what people told you to want. Not what seems realistic. What do you see? Where are you waking up? What kind of environment surrounds you? What kind of energy do you carry when you walk into a room? Who have you become in that version of your life? And I'm not talking about vague ideas like I want to be happy or I want success. That's not vision, that's wishful thinking. Vision is detailed. Vision is specific. It has weight. It has texture. You can feel it when you think about it. You can see it so clearly that it almost feels like memory instead of imagination. Because once you reach that level of clarity, something powerful happens. Your mind stops working against you and starts working for you. Your focus sharpens. Your decisions become easier. You begin to recognize opportunities that were always there, but you couldn't see before because you didn't know what you were looking for. And let me tell you something most people won't say straight to your face: if you don't define your life, someone else will. Society will hand you a script. People will place expectations on you. Circumstances will try to convince you that this is just how things are. And if you're not intentional, you'll start believing it. You'll start living a life that looks acceptable on the outside but feels empty on the inside. That's why vision is not optional. It's necessary. Because your vision becomes your standard, and your standard determines what you accept and what you reject. When you know what you're building, you stop settling for what doesn't align. You stop wasting time on things that don't move you forward. You stop negotiating with distractions that pull you away from your purpose. But here's where it gets real. Having a vision is not comfortable. It stretches you. It exposes the gap between where you are and where you want to be. And that gap, that's where doubt tries to creep in. That's where fear starts whispering, who do you think you are? That's where your past tries to remind you of every time something didn't work out. And in that moment, you have a choice. You can shrink your vision to match your current reality, or you can rise to meet it. Because the truth is, your vision is not there to tease you, what's there to guide you. It's not showing you something impossible, it's showing you something potential, something that requires growth. Yes, something that demands effort, absolutely. But something that is within reach if you're willing to become the person who can hold it. So don't be afraid to dream big. Be afraid of thinking too small. Be afraid of spending your life in a place that never truly challenged you, never truly fulfilled you, never truly reflected who you could have been. Take a moment right now and get honest with yourself, not about what's easy, not about what's safe, but about what's true. See it clearly, feel it deeply, lock it into your mind like it's already yours. You didn't wake up one day and decide, I'm going to live a smaller life. That's not how it happens. It's quieter than that, slower than that. It happens in moments where something didn't go your way, where effort didn't give you the result you expected, where someone you trusted didn't believe in you the way you needed them to. And each time something inside you adjusted just a little. At first you told yourself, it's okay, I'll try again. But then life kept testing you. Another setback, another delay, another door that didn't open. And without even realizing it, your expectations started to shrink. Not because you lost your ability, but because you got tired of the disappointment. So you made a quiet decision. You decided to aim for what felt safe instead of what felt meaningful. You chose certainty over possibility. And from the outside, it looked responsible, looked practical. People might have even praised you for it. But deep down, something didn't sit right. Because settling doesn't silence your dreams, it just buries them. And buried dreams don't disappear. They wait. They show up in those moments when you're alone with your thoughts, when you see someone else doing what you once imagined for yourself, when you feel that pull in your chest that you can't quite explain, but you know it means something. That's not envy. That's recognition. That's a reminder of what you left behind. See, the truth is you didn't lower your standards because you weren't capable. You lowered them because you were protecting yourself from failure, from judgment, from the fear of trying again and not getting it right. And that protection, it feels like comfort, but it comes at a cost. Because every time you choose comfort over growth, you're trading long-term fulfillment for short-term relief. And relief is temporary. It fades off. And then you're left with the same question you've been avoiding: is this really the life I want to live? You can ignore that question for a while. You can distract yourself, stay busy, keep moving. But eventually it catches up. Because deep down, you know when you're not living up to your potential. You feel it in the way you hesitate, in the way you second guess yourself, in the way you talk yourself out of opportunities before you even try. And here's where it gets real. Life will meet you at the level of your expectations. If you expect little, you'll accept little. If you expect average, you'll settle for average. But if you start expecting more from yourself, everything begins to shift. Not because the world suddenly changes, but because you do. You start making different decisions. You start saying no to things that don't align. You start stepping into spaces that once intimidated you. And it's uncomfortable at first because you're breaking a pattern. You're stepping out of a version of yourself that you've been living in for too long. But that discomfort, that's growth trying to happen. And I need you to understand this: there is a difference between being content and settling. Contentment is peace with progress. Settling is acceptance of less than what you know you're capable of. One empowers you, the other holds you back. So don't confuse the two. Don't tell yourself you're being realistic when you're actually being fearful. Don't label it as maturity when it's really hesitation. Be honest with yourself, because honesty is where change begins. You have to confront the version of you that chose safety over purpose, not with judgment, but with awareness. Understand why you made those choices. Understand what you were trying to protect. And then make a new decision, not based on fear, but based on truth. Because the truth is you're still capable. You're still equipped. And it's not too late. It's never too late to raise your standards. It's never too late to say, I want more and I'm willing to work for it. It's never too late to reconnect with that part of you that believed in something bigger. But it requires courage. Not loud, dramatic courage. Quiet, consistent courage. The kind that shows up every day and says, I'm not going to stay where I am if I know I'm meant for more. So stop negotiating with your potential. Stop shrinking your dreams to fit your current situation. Your situation is temporary. Your potential is not. And if something inside you is telling you that you've been settling, don't ignore it. Listen to it. There's a phrase people love to hold on to because it feels safe, because it feels comforting, because it doesn't demand anything from them right now. That phrase is one day. One day I'll start. One day I'll get serious. One day I'll chase what I really want. And every time you say it, it feels like you're still in the game, like you haven't given up. But let me tell you something clearly: one day is not a plan. It's a delay dressed up as hope, because one day has no deadline. It has no urgency. It has no accountability. It allows you to push your potential into the future while staying comfortable in the present. And the longer you stay in that cycle, the easier it becomes to repeat it. Not because you're lazy, but because you've trained your mind to believe there's always more time. But time doesn't work like that. Time moves whether you act or not. It doesn't slow down because you're unsure. It doesn't wait because you're afraid. It keeps going. And every time you choose one day, you're not just postponing action, you're building a habit of hesitation. You're teaching yourself that it's okay to wait instead of move, to think instead of do, to plan instead of execute. And here's the part that most people don't realize: waiting doesn't make things easier. It makes them harder. Because the longer you delay, the heavier it feels to begin. The idea grows bigger in your mind. The pressure increases. The doubt gets louder. And what could have been a simple first step turns into something that feels overwhelming. So you wait even more. And that's how people lose years, not in one big decision, but in small, repeated delays. You tell yourself, I just need the right moment. But what is the right moment? When everything is perfect, when there's no risk, when you feel completely ready. That moment doesn't exist. It never has. Every person who has ever built something meaningful started before they felt ready. They started with uncertainty. They started with fear. They started without having everything figured out. Because they understood something powerful the moment you're waiting for is created by action, not before it. Clarity doesn't come before movement. It comes from movement. Confidence doesn't come before action. It comes from action. Results don't come from thinking about it. They come from doing it. So if you're sitting there waiting to feel different, before you begin, you're stuck in a cycle that feeds itself. You don't act because you don't feel ready, and you don't feel ready because you haven't acted. And the only way to break that cycle is to move anyway, not perfectly, not dramatically, just intentionally. Take the step that's in front of you, not the entire journey, just the next move, because progress is built in pieces, not in leaps. And every step you take weakens the power of one day and replaces it with something real: momentum. Momentum changes everything, because once you start moving, your perspective shifts. You begin to see what works and what doesn't. You learn, you adapt, you grow, and suddenly the thing that felt so distant starts to feel possible. But none of that happens if you stay where you are. You can't think your way into a new life. You have to act your way into it. And let's be honest for a moment, how many times have you told yourself, I'll start tomorrow? How many tomorrows have passed without action? At some point, you have to stop believing your own excuses, not with harshness, but with honesty. Because the truth is, the delay is not helping you. It's holding you back. You don't need more time. You need a decision that says, I'm done waiting. A decision that says, I don't need perfect conditions to begin. A decision that says, right now is enough. Because right now is all you ever truly have. Yesterday is gone. Tomorrow is not guaranteed. But this moment, this is where everything can change if you choose to use it. And I'm not telling you it's going to be easy. It won't be. There will be resistance. There will be moments where you question yourself. But those moments are part of the process, not a reason to stop. Because every time you choose action over delay, you're stepping closer to the life you said you wanted. And every time you choose one day, you're stepping further away from it. So make it simple. Stop overcomplicating it. Stop waiting for clarity, for confidence, for certainty. Start, even if it's small, even if it's imperfect, even if it's uncomfortable. There's something you have to understand if you're serious about changing your life, and it's not always easy to accept. The life you keep imagining, the one you say you deserve, the one that pulls at you when things get quiet, that life requires a version of you that you haven't fully become yet. And that's not an insult. That's not a limitation. That's an invitation. Because too many people are trying to reach a new level while holding on to old habits, old thinking, old patterns that were built for a smaller life. They want bigger results without becoming a bigger person. And it doesn't work like that. You don't get rewarded for what you want. You get rewarded for who you become. So the real question is not, how do I get that life? The real question is, who do I need to become to sustain that life? Because if you somehow received everything you're asking for, right now, without growth, without preparation, without discipline, you wouldn't be able to hold it. It would slip through your hands. Not because you're not worthy, but because you're not ready. Readiness isn't about talent. It's about alignment. Your habits have to align with your vision. Your mindset has to align with your goals. Your daily actions have to align with the future you keep talking about. And if they don't, there's a gap. And that gap is where frustration lives. You can feel it when you say you want more, but keep doing the same things. You can feel it when you set a goal, but don't follow through. That tension. That's the difference between who you are right now and who you know you could be. And here's the truth: most people avoid that gap. Doesn't close by wishing. It closes through change, real change, not surface level adjustments, not temporary motivation. I'm talking about the kind of change that challenges your comfort, that forces you to look at yourself honestly, that demands consistency even when you don't feel like it. Because becoming that next version of yourself requires letting go of the current one, letting go of the excuses that kept you safe, letting go of the habits that held you back, letting go of the mindset that told you this is enough when deep down you knew it wasn't. And I won't lie to you, that process is uncomfortable. Growth always is, because you're stepping into unfamiliar territory. You're asking more from yourself than you ever have before. You're raising your standards, and that means you can't move the same way anymore. You can't think the same way. You can't act the same way. You can't respond to challenges the same way. You have to evolve. And evolution doesn't happen all at once. It happens in moments, in decisions, in the small choices you make every day when nobody is watching. It's choosing discipline over distraction. It's choosing effort over excuses. It's choosing to show up even when it's inconvenient. That's where transformation happens, not in big dramatic moves, but in consistent, intentional action. And here's what makes it powerful. Every time you make the right choice, even when it's hard, you're reinforcing a new identity. You're proving to yourself that you're not the same person anymore. You're building trust with yourself. And self-trust, that's everything. Because when you trust yourself, you stop second-guessing every move. You stop hesitating. You stop needing constant validation. You move with certainty, not because you have all the answers, but because you know you'll figure it out. That's what it means to become. It's not about perfection. It's about progress. It's about showing up as the person you're trying to be before the results show up to confirm it. Act like the person who deserves that life. Think like the person who can handle that level. Move like the person who refuses to settle. And over time, something incredible happens. The line between who you are and who you want to be starts to disappear, because you're no longer chasing that version of yourself. You're stepping into it. But it starts with honesty. Where are you right now? What habits are holding you back? What patterns are keeping you stuck? Don't avoid those questions. Face them. Because awareness is the first step to change. And once you see clearly, you can move intentionally. You can build yourself piece by piece into someone stronger, sharper, more disciplined, more focused, someone who doesn't just dream about a better life, but is actually prepared to live it. Fear is going to show up. Not once, not occasionally, but every single time you decide to step into something that matters. And the mistake most people make is thinking that fear means stop. They treat it like a warning sign, like a signal that they're not ready, like proof that they shouldn't move forward. But fear isn't there to stop you. It's there to reveal you. It shows you exactly where your comfort zone ends and your growth begins. It shows you the edge of who you are right now and the doorway to who you could become. And if you spend your life avoiding that feeling, you don't just avoid fear, you avoid expansion. You avoid opportunity. You avoid the life you keep saying you want. Because everything meaningful sits on the other side of that discomfort. Now let's get real about it. Fear doesn't always look dramatic. It doesn't always feel like panic. Sometimes it's subtle. It sounds like overthinking. It feels like hesitation. It shows up as maybe I should wait, or what if I fail, or what will people think? And if you don't recognize it for what it is, you'll mistake it for logic. You'll convince yourself you're being careful, when in reality you're being controlled. Controlled by the need to feel safe. And safety has its place, but not when it starts limiting your potential. Because if you only move when you feel completely comfortable, you will stay exactly where you are. You'll repeat the same patterns, make the same choices, live the same outcomes. Not because you can't do more, but because you refuse to step into the unknown. And growth lives in the unknown. So the question becomes, what are you going to do when fear shows up? Are you going to listen to it, or are you going to move anyway? Because courage is not about eliminating fear. That's a myth. Fear doesn't disappear when you become stronger. It just stops having control over your decisions. Courage is about feeling it, acknowledging it, and choosing action in spite of it. It's saying, I'm afraid, but I'm going. I'm unsure, but I'm moving. I don't have it all figured out, but I'm not staying here. That's power. And the more you do that, the more your relationship with fear changes. It stops being something that blocks you and starts becoming something that guides you. Because now, when you feel it, instead of pulling back, you lean in. You recognize that if it scares you in the right way, if it challenges you, stretches you, pushes you beyond what's familiar, that's probably the direction you need to go. Not recklessly, not blindly, but boldly. And here's what most people never experience, because they never take that step. Fear shrinks when you face it. It doesn't disappear all at once, but it weakens. Every time you act despite it, you take away a piece of its power. What once felt impossible starts to feel manageable. What once felt overwhelming starts to feel like a challenge you can handle. But that only happens through action. You can't think your way out of fear. You can't wait for it to fade. You have to move through it. And yes, you might fail. Let's be honest about that. You might take a step and it doesn't work out the way you expected. You might fall short. You might feel embarrassed. But failure is not the enemy fear of failure is, because failure teaches. It refines. It builds resilience. But fear keeps you stuck in place, learning nothing, growing nowhere. And staying stuck, that's the real loss. So if you're waiting to feel confident before you act, you're waiting for something that comes after the action, not before it. Confidence is built. It's earned through experience, through repetition, through showing yourself that you can handle what you once thought you couldn't. And it starts small. One decision, one step, one moment where you choose movement over hesitation. That's how it begins. You don't need to conquer every fear at once. You just need to stop letting it make your decisions for you. Because the moment you take control, even in a small way, you start shifting the direction of your life. You stop being a spectator. You become a participant. And that changes everything. Because now, instead of watching opportunities pass you by, you start stepping into them. Instead of wondering what if, you start finding out. Instead of living in your head, you start living in your actions. And that's where life actually happens. So don't wait for fear to leave. Don't expect it to. Welcome it, understand it, but don't obey it. Move anyway. Motivation feels powerful in the moment, doesn't it? It hits you like a wave. You hear something, you watch something, you feel something, and suddenly you're ready to change your life. You're energized, focused, driven. In that moment, it feels like nothing can stop you. But here's the truth. Most people learn the hard way motivation doesn't last. It fades. It's emotional. It rises and falls depending on how you feel, what's happening around you, how much energy you have that day. And if your entire life is built on something that's unstable, then your progress will always be inconsistent. One day you're all in, the next day you're nowhere to be found. That's why so many people start strong and disappear quietly, because they relied on a feeling instead of building a system. Discipline is different. Discipline doesn't ask how you feel. It doesn't care if you're tired. It doesn't negotiate with your excuses. It shows up anyway. And that's the difference between people who talk about change and people who actually create it. One group waits to feel ready. The other group decides that whether they feel ready or not, they're going to move, because they understand something powerful. You have your future is not built on your best days. It's built on your consistent days. It's easy to work hard when you feel motivated. It's easy to show up when everything is going right. But what about the days when you don't feel like it? What about the mornings when your energy is low, your mind is distracted, and nothing inside you is pushing you forward? That's where discipline takes over. That's where real growth happens. Because when you act in those moments, you're doing something most people won't do. You're separating yourself from the version of you that only moves when it's convenient. You're proving that your goals matter more than your comfort. And that builds something deeper than motivation ever could. It builds identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries, and you start seeing yourself as someone who does. And once that shift happens, everything changes. Because now your actions are no longer dependent on your mood. They're aligned with your commitment. You don't wake up and ask, do I feel like it today? You wake up and say, this is what I do. That's power. And don't get it twisted, discipline is not easy. It requires effort. It requires sacrifice. It requires you to say no to things that feel good in the moment so you can say yes to something greater in the future. It means showing up when nobody is watching. It means putting in work that doesn't get immediate recognition. It means staying consistent even when results are slow, because results take time. And if you don't have discipline, you'll quit before they arrive. You'll start questioning yourself. You'll start doubting the process. You'll start looking for shortcuts, faster ways. But discipline keeps you grounded. It keeps you focused. It reminds you that anything worth building takes time, repetition, and patience. And here's what makes it even more important: discipline compounds. Every small action you take builds on the last one. Every time you follow through, you strengthen that habit. And over time, what once felt difficult becomes automatic. What once required effort becomes part of who you are. That's how transformation happens. Not in one big moment, but in thousands of small, consistent decisions. So stop chasing motivation like it's the answer. Use it when it's there. It's a great spark. But don't depend on it to carry you, because it won't. Build discipline instead. Create routines that support your goals. Set standards that you refuse to drop below. Decide in advance what kind of person you're going to be, and then act accordingly every single day, even when it's hard, even when it's boring, even when you don't feel like it, especially. Then, because those are the moments that define you. Those are the moments where you either move closer to the life you want or drift further away from it. And nobody else can make that choice for you. It's yours. So the next time you don't feel motivated, don't stop, don't wait, don't make excuses. Show up anyway. Because the life you deserve is not built on how you feel, it's built on what you do consistently. So tell me when the feeling disappears, will your discipline be strong enough to keep you moving forward?